Hi everyone. It is, I guess today is Wednesday. Yeah, December 4th. I think it's Wednesday. I have to share a story, and here's my little, she's not really little, my kitty cat Molly. Say hello to Molly. I have to make a video for what I landed on last night. So, from the search for the meaning of Cyprus, why is Cyprus so important? I've been contemplating Cyprus and Aphrodite together. Gosh, anytime I start a video, I start with a grumbly voice. Anyway, I was reading the detail in the Bridgerton the other day, and so then I kept contemplating, okay, we see that in the book, not in the show, but in the book, there's a lot of detail of Colin in Cyprus and his experience with the sand, the warmth, and the wave and the foamy waves. And so Julia Quinn, in her literary creativity, is literally evoking Aphrodite through Colin's experience. So his experience with that beauty and having him in absolutely in the place of the birth of Aphrodite as we know her from the Greek myth. And the Greek myth is really potent because the symbolism, when I go through the symbolism, we have imagery, right? We have an understanding of that through the mythology. And a lot of people don't maybe think about how Aphrodite was birthed and born. So from the, she literally has no mother archetype except for she's coming out of the ocean, the sea, and she's birthed from the severed member of Uranus. And so that's the sky god. And the sky god is, when you bring in the mythology of Uranus and Gaia, which Gaia is earth. And so, but Aphrodite doesn't have that connection because she emerges from the sea. So there's something very heavenly about Aphrodite just in that symbolism. And in that symbolism also is the swan. And so we often see the image of like Botticelli's painting where she's standing on the shell, right? It's almost like she's the pearl in the shell. Oh my gosh. I keep seeing all the symbolism, and I kept wondering, okay, Cyprus, okay, we see the birth of Aphrodite there. But then when you trace back further, you can see that one of the first symbols of Aphrodite is her seated, she's on a goose, or actually a swan. That so there's different types of Venus, I guess, and I'll put this more concretely in the notes of the summary of this video, because I think the importance that I'm coming to is the symbolism around Aphrodite and her origins as far back as we can go in the Greek, that has the symbolism, but it was like she came from another place as well. Like she flew in on a swan, right? On a goose. But she was birthed there too. So it's almost like Aphrodite, the symbolism of Aphrodite went through some kind of rebirth in Cyprus. And there's a, excuse me, gosh, my throat. The Aphrodite symbolism to me is so multi-layered because of we have the Greek myth, and then the Greek myth then gets pulled in by Roman, and so then we have Venus. And Venus, we know in astrology, is also connected to Inanna, Ishtar, Inanna, when she's Venus as the planetary body that we see in the heavens. And the process that Venus goes through from going from evening star to morning star in the retrograde process, and how she goes into the underworld. So it's again another story about a process of life going into the underworld, like a death, and then the rebirth process. But it's very significant related to kind of what she symbolizes. And there is the Venus that is, gosh, excuse me. There's the Venus that is like the sensuality and that focus. And then there's also this symbolism with the dove. The dove is more like almost like a spiritual Venus to me, like a peace in that in that context. But Aphrodite also has symbolism in the Psyche and Eros telling. That's a story that's kind of, it's like a mythical story, like a story within the story of the golden ass, and the metamorphosis. And I haven't read that whole detail, but that is when I've been researching about Psyche and Eros, it's pulling on the threads of, you can't take it out of the context of what it's trying to say within the whole story of the golden ass, and what it's trying to point out about the main character, which I'm eluding me at this moment. It's in this book. In this book I've been reading, and he goes into a lot of details about different ways people interpret that as either being like a folk story or a fairy tale versus a mythology. I had no idea about this. I'm not a classics major, but I mean, so many different Jungian analysts and how they interpreted it, the telling of the story, and how some overlay symbolism into the like the spiritual resurrection kind of thing. And so there's a lot of overlay in how people interpret it. But it was kind of interesting that this whole book, which goes into all the different ways that different, I guess, masters of classical studies or literature would, or psychology, the Jungian psychology would look at that archetypally. And this was my original book here. All my books. So this was my original book here. And this is where it kind of gives you a really nice telling of it in detail, with all the tasks that Aphrodite sends Psyche on, because Aphrodite is jealous of her being recognized for her beauty in the earthly realm, right? And sends her on these tasks. And then Eros is sent to sent to her, but to destroy her, but in essence ends up falling in love, well, getting nicked by his own arrow of doing that, and falls in love with her himself. And then there's a whole process of, but it's all like an allegory, of course, of symbolism and all of this stuff, but it's like Eros in the symbolism of chaos itself. Eros is so far back in the mythology. It's literally in the beginning, it's kind of like chaos, and then but it's also desire. And then so it comes in like that as well. And then Psyche being symbolic of soul. And so when I've been exploring the depths of this book, and you can see all my tabs, and then this book, but I kept asking myself, I always ask myself questions like, because it's like, I'm not getting enough. It's not enough to help me put the pieces together. Why is this so important? Why is this symbolism pulling on so many things with Psyche and Eros in the storytelling of Colin and Penelope, and then how they use that in the Netflix series for Bridgerton, right? And this is where I can't believe this is taking me all this way. And then I have this book that I wanted to pull together. It's from Elizabeth Brooke, who does a lot with mythology and astrology together. I found her online. I've been following her stuff, and she does a really great write-up of astrology and showing its symbolism with certain unique people, and that we have their astrology chart information for. But it really kind of gives a great illustration of the symbolism of each goddess, and Aphrodite is included in here. And then I have other ones that I've been looking at. This one also by James Hollis is the Eden Project. There's some stuff in here. I mean, I have book after book after book that over time I've read this book, but I read this book a few years ago, and this is a really good book. It's called The Ravaged Bridegroom. It is also talking about the feminine and from the psychological Jungian standpoint, because Marianne Woodman is a Jungian psychologist. And what else do I have here? So you can see all the bits and pieces. I want to just share like all the bits and pieces that, and there's another one I just purchased. I was looking at different books on mythology, and I have purchased a few more because I'm in pursuit of the symbolism. So because of how it may come across and what it's trying to, illuminate. So, and here's another one that I also read a couple of years ago. It's called The Sacred Prostitute. And there's another one that I have like in this series that I haven't pulled it yet because I was pulling all my books. It's something, I don't have it out here. There's another one in that series that I'll have to find it on my bookshelf, but maybe I need to look at that one. It's something about the bride. But it's about the feminine and the archetypal. And all of this was because I was asking about Aphrodite. Every time I wake up, I kind of like, okay, universe, help me see more about Aphrodite. It's all consuming. But I wanted to get to it because in the story for Eros and Psyche, and of course this one they call it Amor and Psyche, but same thing, Eros and Psyche, Aphrodite takes on a different kind of symbolism in the archetype, because in this story she's a bit of a dark mother, and I think that it's important to kind of take into consideration the role that she plays as part of demanding that Psyche go on these do these tasks. And it goes into a lot of detail on each one, which is great because every little detail is nice to have to explore the theme. But in the end, how this one kind of shows that story and how it kind of breaks out is that Psyche kind of fails the last task, because when she emerges from the underworld, because she'd gone to Persephone to get the something in the little box, and she's not to look in the box, but she looks in the box, and I've said this before, but she doesn't look in the box until she emerges out of the underworld and is on, basically on the earth plane. So she's out of the underworld and on the earth, so she's standing on the earth, right? And then she looks in the box, and then it appears that she falls asleep or death or something comes over her, right? I can't remember explicitly how it ends there. But what is key there is that she fails, like by opening the box. And then and she's also symbolic of the feminine in a way. And the feminine kind of almost surrendering, or the death of the feminine in some way, I guess. That's symbolic, not actually, right? And then Eros coming in and lifting her up, and then that Eros goes to Zeus on Mount Olympus to plead for her to bring her back, or something like that. And in that telling, she is raised up as a part of the god. So she's like almost like she's mortal and becomes immortal in that telling. And that to me is a huge clue about the death and rebirth process and the importance of that in for the soul. And that in in the detail of Cyprus, because it was Aphrodite and Cyprus. So why Cyprus? Why Cyprus? Why Cyprus? So when I would go look at Cyprus, I would be like, oh, look at all the symbolism, the iconography that's in Cyprus, within the halls of monasteries and all of that, right? So, okay, I was raised in a Christian household, but I would not articulate myself as that exactly now because I'm an astrologer, but there are probably astrologers who are Christian, and some lean towards, I think there's something much bigger than just that. But I kind of, once you enter into the mysteries, you kind of go into the mysteries, and it's not just the literal stuff that you get when you go to church on everyday teachings. It's more complex than that. And there's so much hidden in the mysteries, and that you come to that awareness as you waken up to it, of the symbolism that is buried in the parable, and that sort of thing. So I just want to give you a little background of where I come from, because that was a part of my awakening when I came to astrology. But I think even before then, I kind of started releasing my connection to organized religion probably in my mid to late 20s. Back in, I would guess that would be in like the late 90s, because of what I had gone through in that. That's a whole nother story. But so my awakening has been several years, but astrology came to me in like 2010. I had dreams in 2009, 8, and numerology around 2008, just playing with it and some other things. But it's important to bring it kind of forward to like what we get by sharing the astrology. It's almost like an invitation to initiation in a sorts. And with the age of Aquarius coming in, it is, as in the Bible pointed out, as the man with the pitcher. Look that one up. And it's important to understand now that the age of Pisces is ending, so you'll see a lot of things come around with the age ending, okay? Because you have an overlap of ages, right? But I think it's important to like look at the stories, and all of the Christianity is so much a part of the age of Pisces because of how the Bible helps relay that information about the ending of the age of Aries being so bloody, and then the coming of it's kind of like having an avatar on Earth, but what is real life and what is symbolism that's been handed down through the mysteries, and that's the key here. And I think in the age of Aquarius, more of this knowledge will be pouring onto the earth and to humanity, because It is the thing that will help us return to love versus the amount of fear that we've allowed into our experience. So, because there is a balance of what we, because the ultimate power is love, and that's what all of this kind of references. And you could argue that that's exactly what, if you want to take the Christianity from from the essence of it, is about love, right? I mean, but it doesn't always translate that way in some of the experiences that people have had as it relates to organized religion, and especially not in the last couple, well, not in the, I would say in across many years. I don't, hundreds of years. It's been, organized religion has hurt so many people and souls, and those wounded from those experiences are born, we incarnate in a body, and then we are living through so much of our life, a great portion of our life is lived from the unconscious mind, and the behaviors and the patterns and the reliving of old wounds until we wake up to that. And then that's the waking up process. And then that's learning from that, and then learning about ourselves as we walk in this experience. But there's the physical self, and then there's the soul, and then there's spirit. There's these kind of different levels of yourself and what you're connected to and how you're connected to all that. And I think if there were a deeper truth, it's that, and that, but additionally to that is the power of love as being the ultimate power. But at times it probably doesn't feel like that, especially you look at the news. It's kind of distressing, right? And but how we heal comes from the power of love. So in the exploration of Aphrodite, which also is symbolic of Venus, which is also symbolic of love, and the variations of that, I think this is a worthy pursuit of understanding Aphrodite symbolism. And I also love words and etymology. And I was looking at what Aphrodite means, and it's birthed from sea foam. I mean, that's exactly what Aphrodite means in Greek. So one born from the foam, or one born from the sea foam. And so to me, there's another layer there that is, so as above, so below, as above. And there's the other part, which is as within, so without, etc., etc. So, and that part is, what else is the sea foam? What else is the sea foam within every person? I am still like, what is that? What is that in our physical body chemistry that is maybe connecting us to something of understanding that and experiencing that as grace? Because the swans are symbolic of, it's always often mentioned as beauty and grace, and then also that Aphrodite is love, and also with the symbols, like she has the symbols of herself and her emerging from the sea foam, and the clam, being in the clam, which is almost like the birth of Venus. With the clam is kind of like she's in the there, and then the connection with clam and the pearl of wisdom. It's so many layers, and and this is where I've come to. And but also, when I was doing some of my research about why Cyprus, what's in Cyprus, what's so unique about Cyprus, and why Julia Quinn might have had Colin in his travels, and really relaying that in the book. And yet that's not translated so much in the Bridgerton that was created for Netflix, right? It's not shared or discussed about Cyprus, but it is in the book. And when I was listening to the book, and I say this before, it really was like bing in my, like, wait a minute, Cyprus was his first visit. And so there's something to the symbolism of Colin's travels about Cyprus, and that he went there first. And then I was like, okay, so there's overlays of symbolism, right? And so did you guys know that oh goodness, one of the apostles, Paul, and his friend Barnabas, is one of the first experiences of converting someone into the gospel of the Christian gospel, I guess, is happened or in the record in Cyprus. So the beginning of the Piscean age is reflected in the story of the telling of the beginning of Christianity. So why is that so important? Why is that so important to, like, Colin and Penelope's story? Well, Colin and Penelope's story, they're overlaying in the story in Bridgerton. So you're making a tie between Bridgerton creation with Julia Quinn and Shonda. So it's like another way of translation of her story, right? It's fiction, right? But within fiction, within literature, you can have stories. And in the stories, there is symbolism that can, when you're awakening, you'll come to understand that the way that the symbols and messages from spirit work can come in any person, can come in any animal, can come in nature. And you are getting an experience that is relaying something very powerful and probably synchronistic to you through nature, which is ultimately also God. But God in the physicals to me is nature. So it's the physical, seeing it in the physical way. But there's also there's more to that that I'm articulating in this moment. But put it there. Colin's journey to Cyprus as a first, it's almost like the symbolism is a carryover into the Bridgerton, because the Bridgerton show began in 2019, and of course before the coronavirus. They filmed the first one 2019 and into the very beginnings of 2020 before we all landed into quarantine. And I kind of look at the quarantine period as like it's almost the change up between the ages, because as new energy comes in, is going to give us the age of Aquarius. And during that time, there's a lot of information that's being birthed. At the same time, there's symbolism that I think translates to Bridgerton is kind of the Netflix show being launched. The very first season 1 was launched on Christmas Day. What an interesting day. 2020. And then of course in the writing that had to be in the script in season 1 included the seed of season 3. But that wouldn't come until 2024, right? But they'd have to start the symbolism within the script, within the imagery of Penelope's gowns with the butterfly, yellow, gold, and all of these things, because there is symbolism of Aphrodite also as gold. So, but in the show, it's almost like Penelope is like symbolic of Psyche, though, in comparison to Aphrodite. Okay, you follow me so far? This is probably getting long video, but the symbolism of Aphrodite is very important in terms of she used to be called. She is called in one of these, and I've got to find it and make a note of it. Is what book it's in? Is she's called the Golden One. She was forever called the Golden One. She also had the golden rays around her as well. So there's symbolism for that, describing Aphrodite, okay, as the Golden One. And we have other moments of Nicola wearing a huge golden hat, but it's in the form of a circle around her head. In September of 2023, when she was at Vogue World. So she's carrying through. Nicola is like a vehicle as a human that is showing the symbolism of Aphrodite through some of what she does. It picks up, and it's undeniable. And it's the power of not only the Venus or the Aphrodite in her chart, but it's and that she brings that out through art, or through the arts, or through the Libra archetype, because the Libra archetype is fashion, but also I kind of look at fashion, makeup, that kind of thing as Libra. That's Venus air. And then you have Venus Taurus, which is earth, and that's more sensuality, passion, that kind of thing. And I see that with Colin more, or excuse me, Luke more, and Luke showing that in the world, though Luke is also participating heavily in the Libra, and he has Jupiter in Libra, so he also shows the imagery and the symbolism in fashion, through fashion. But these are symbols of Aphrodite. Aphrodite is the arts. So when they're doing the acting, when they are cast into a part, they are participating in a part of what Aphrodite symbolizes as a goddess. So it's almost like I get the sense that it's like Aphrodite laughing, like, I got you guys so good. So because it's the symbol through time, that it doesn't matter when you look at it, that you could see it, but the way it comes out in 2024 is really loud, and really just the symbols are again and again and again and again and again. They're prolific is better word, but it's also creation is sound, right? So when we talk about the symbolism, or we talk about what their characters are doing when they go and they play these parts. So everything that's announced, everything that's spoken about, logos, or spoken, the word, throat chakra, Taurus, and what how it's creating life, but it's a connection to the mortal perspective, like what we are as living on planet Earth and going about our passions and what we do, right? And then also there's an immortal part, right? There's a part of each of us that is immortal, that's spirit, right? But there's also, or soul. Soul is, in evolutionary astrology, soul is the part of us that is attracted to come to incarnate. This is part of the teachings of evolutionary astrology, is the soul comes to incarnates because of the emotional connection. That's soul. And that's the emotional thing that it wants to evolve. And it's basically returning to love and to know itself as itself. So it's our connection to life in a way that is bringing the mystical forward more and into beyond what might have, I guess, as we move more and more into the age of Aquarius, the mysteries, they've been so hidden. And it might be surprising how much has been hidden, but it's rather, I don't know, it's very joyful to actually land on each little thing as I go, because, and we're in a Mercury retrograde right now, right? Last night when I landed on a video, and I'll share the video but I think you need a couple of videos to then have that video to understand so many things that I'm trying to pull together here and make it into something cohesive and coherent for you. Because I have been pulling on the thread of Eros and Psyche. And Eros and Psyche absolutely brings in Aphrodite. And so it brings in all the myth and the mysteries connected to that. So it's quite huge to try to articulate so much in a little bit of time. But hopefully, and I think what I think has been birthed in 2024 through Nicola Coughlan and Luke Newton, and the part that they played was those two together, and considering Gemini as a very important sign in the zodiac. But what that means, I am coming to understand Gemini in such a deeper way that I can't even quite articulate it yet. And yet it is so, so important in the astrology of Nicola being her 5th house of creativity. It's almost like she's the embodiment of a goddess, right? And that through her creative works, we will be able to see some of the symbolism of that truth. And so I'm hoping this is coming across to the level that I am excited about it, enthusiastic, joy, bliss. Because, last night I was up and I landed on this video and I'm like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. And it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. Literally, I'm like, I think I woke up my husband. He came in. He's like, honey, you need to come to bed. You got to go to work tomorrow. You've got responsibilities. And here I am trying to figure this thing out. And I'm like, oh, I just landed on this piece of research and I really want to watch this. And he's like, just come to bed, honey. And so I came to bed, but I put my headphones on my head and I listened to the video the rest of the way while I was laying in bed. And it's like stunning how much it articulates about the mysteries and the importance of Gemini symbolism and its connection to our truth, our deeper truth in living, incarnate, having a body, and so there's the aspect of being a human, and then you have the soul, and then you have spirit. And this video really, really helps bring that in a way that is so beautifully put together. And it's not very long, but it's a worth exploring. And I think it gets so much, it brings so much clarity around the power of Gemini and the heavenly bodies that are the stars above, and that astrologers, and as I'm an astrologer, we learn about the zodiac, and then we understand the mystery of what can be brought forward to help to be in service to others, to guide others, to guide other souls in their life experience. But it's the translation of that symbolism, right? Because of the symbols, everything is symbol to me, and the images, and it's the task is trying to translate it. And that the swan, I've been looking at all the swan imagery as well, is a part of that symbolism as well. So you will see the swan in the mythology, in the zodiac sign of the Gemini, and the twins then beget a total of 4, both having masculine, feminine, one mortal, one immortal. And the beauty of that, and what it tells, and it should tell you, but maybe you need more study with it, or you might dive into it quick. This is like initiation, so you may dive in pretty quickly to understand what is being presented again and again. And I don't think that consciously Nicola Coughlan and Luke Newton know that they embody something like this. They are just living their best life as actors, but they're acting out certain things, and on their own path of life, there is symbolism, almost like the mirror that I've been talking about. And there's something about their souls, that spirit part, that I think has been leaking through for some of the symbolism. And that's why we're getting the mirror of it into their actual life. And that is fascinating. Is it not? Anyway, this is already at like 42 minutes, almost 43 minutes. So this is a bit, but maybe I can clean it up a little bit in the edit. But anyway, I think there's still probably more to come, because we are in the middle of a retrograde, and I'm fully aware of that. And today, December 4th, when I looked at the astrology last night, I was like, I'm landing on this. What time is it? What is it? I looked at 1 o'clock in the morning, December 4th, and what it looked like from where I am on the planet Earth here in West Richland. And Jupiter is opposite Mercury. And Jupiter was at the top of the chart in the 10th house, with Mercury at the bottom of the house. It was like, oh my God, I'm getting this in this moment. And I literally took a picture of the chart, because I'm like, this is the moment. This is so much symbolism of importance for me. But I also think there's additional insights that are yet to come, because I'm not all the way through. We're not all the way through the Mercury retrograde. And this Mercury retrograde is so powerful because they're in each other's signs. So Jupiter is in Mercury sign, Mercury is in Jupiter sign. And what is coming from that? And with Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn in Pisces to me is it is square to that. So there's this interesting juxtaposition of Saturn. And that could be also part of like what might also emerge from this. It's like, because Saturn is such an important planetary body as a part of our experience on Earth as human, and what we are mastering or understand. But also, it's kind of like when we're born, a lot of, I guess, another When you look at it, you kind of born and then you're going to die one day, right? We're all going to die from the body one day and then move on into another form, because I believe we go on to another form, and then we are invited to come back. Now, there are different beliefs of people who have around reincarnation, but to me, that is symbolic of the death and rebirth. But the question is because then you layer in all the insights around the ages, like the age of Pisces. Okay, there's the age of Taurus, and to me, there's a little bit of symbolism of the age of Taurus also in the Bible, when they were, at the end of an age is where things become extreme. So when you come to the end of an age, you can have extreme expressions of that archetype. So at the end of the age of Taurus, you'd have extreme hedonistic expressions in humanity, and they kind of in the story of I guess when Moses goes up on the mountain and they're building the golden calf. That's kind of articulating to me the symbolism of the ending of the age of Taurus because of how it's described, right? Then you go, and then it's emerging into the age of Aries. And so something pioneering, something new, but then it's also conflict and bloodshed because Mars rules Aries. But that's interesting to kind of take into consideration something brand new birthed in the age of Aries, right? Because Aries is raw energy. And then as that merges, because when you go, you process through the ages, then at the end of Aries, the age of Aries, you have the extreme violence of like the Roman Empire and that period. And then it emerges into the age of Pisces, and that's when we get the birth of Christianity and how that's going to be carried through 2,000 some plus years, and then where we are today, as we are at the end, the overlapping of the end of the age of Pisces, and we can see the extremes of Christianity as it's been as it's taken to an extreme, right? And what we can see that and the extremes of how it can get distorted as well, right? I mean, that's kind of how it gets expressed. Kind of, it's like one last hurrah. It's almost like a tidal wave of the Piscean energy when you come to the end of an age. But the new age is emerging, and the new age is the man with the pitcher, which is in the heavens the sign of Aquarius. And so it is definitely that period of time. And what that is really the awakening of all the knowledge. And so that to me means that the symbolism of what's been hidden for, I mean, think about astrology and other occult knowledge, wisdom has been hidden because it was persecuted. People were persecuted for it. Women were burned for knowing, how having knowledge of healing practices. So many millions of souls were persecuted. And this is in our DNA, you guys. When we're born, we are born with that the ancestors, their experiences, right? And if you look at your own your tree of your ancestors, like just going back, my mother and her mother and her mother, I kind of look at that line and look at, what did my grandma experience? My grandma experienced the Great Depression, and that's what influenced her relationship with my mother. But if you think about it, my grandma was influenced by her mother, and her mother was a part of. So my great grandma Goldie, we're going back a bit here. She was a wild child. She had 5 husbands, and but she was born in the age of Pluto in Gemini, I believe. And grandma, my grandma Grant, my mom's mom, was born when Pluto was in Cancer. And then my mom born in Pluto in Leo, me born in Pluto in Virgo, blah, blah, blah. But what I think is important is to understand that it's like a trail, really, of, I've heard like the number 7 is important. So 7 generations, we can carry some of that into our own experience and some of the things that we carry in our own wounds and our own experience. And absolutely, that's true of the case. And I've studied my own family and their astrology, and I've done a couple of blogs on some of this, but and I've also done some videos when I brought out my own grandmother's astrology and my mother's astrology and making some connections. I did that back in 2017, I think. Anyway, I want to point out that the knowledge is going to come faster when Uranus gets into Gemini. And that's next year, you guys. That is so soon. This is going to accelerate. And the more that we're looking into that information to have the knowledge, the truth, because there's a deeper truth. And when you get to the deeper truth, it's going to reveal something about ourselves as being human with a soul, with a spirit, and that connection. And that's all connected. And how we might navigate life. What's the purpose of life? And that's what I do. When people come to astrology, I kind of work with the nativity, your nativity, which is your natal chart, the point and place you were born on Earth. You know, that moment you first took your breath, and then what that can bring to you and help provide some symbolism to help, you know, kind of break it down and like, okay, this is like symbolic of wisdom that comes through the symbols. And that's like the astrologer having, it's kind of an active astrology is a 9th house thing. It's about the you know, divining with the information, I guess. Because you can use, I mean, that's kind of how, like, maybe why it was persecuted so much. So, but it was something that was used by kings and queens. And, you know, there was astrologers. And even in the birth of Christ in the story, even if we look at it from literal, if people want to look at it literal, okay, even you could, but I kind of look at things as allegorical and parable. That's kind of how I look at things. But it's the 3 magi, looking at the star. You know, what are these symbols in these stories, right? The 3 magi, pretty much, you could argue that they're astrologers, right? So that they are, yeah. Anyway, I just want to point out that there is, you know, something that you can gain for your own knowledge about your soul, your soul's intention, this life, so you can kind of focus yourself into understanding your unique, kind of like your it's almost like having a compass of like, where's my north, you know, where's my north star, where am I going, what am I doing? But to have more insights and knowledge from the symbolism of that actually helps you live your best life, and but also navigate some of the challenges that are going to present as we navigate through such a unique time in history. I mean, just think of how powerful it is that you were born, and as you're an adult at the changing of an age. That's super powerful. I mean, I was born in 1969, and um, just to think that here I am, I'm 54, I'm going to be 55 this month, and I am living at a time when we're actually seeing the end of the age of Pisces and the beginning of the age of Aquarius. Now, some people argue that it's just this overlay of 200 some years. You could say that. I've heard 200, 250 years, 200 years, but I kind of look at the astrology of not just the astrology, but of just kind of like what my master teacher says. Stephen Forrest made the argument of when Einstein produced his paper for the E equals mc squared or something like that, the equation for relativity, and then you have near that time the emergence of the first flight by the Wright brothers. So humans getting flight. That is the emerging age of Aquarius. And then within so many years, we are building planes and then heading off to space, right? Like this is the emergence of the Aquarian age. Now in 2000, I don't know when the first rockets emerged, but you get my point. So we are definitely, and now we have rockets that have the ability to take off, but then also come back and land to be reused. So it's an interesting point in time, but there's technology about that's out there expressed in the physical world, but there's also technology within yourself that a lot of people aren't aware of how powerful it really is, and how you attune to that, and the power of the word that we speak, and the power of the throat chakra. And in this period of time, at this time, there's another, I guess, I don't know if you want to call him a philosopher. He calls him what's the name he calls himself? His name is Robert Grant, and he did a show on Gaia TV, I guess, and it's about this the Chi, Omega Chi, Alpha Omega Chi, no, Alpha Chi Omega, Alpha Chi Omega, and his findings within the Great Pyramid and the importance of what gets revealed through the pyramid symbolism that he's come across. And what I get out of that is that the throat chakra coming online, and so what we create, there's our awareness of the consciousness of how we create through sound. And also is a part of this is the importance of, I guess, in the Rosa, it's in this video that I came across last night, is the power of sonnets and plays by Shakespeare, and how we can practice through these plays, through being acted on the stage, these themes. So when we see actors on the stage, and in the contemporary sense, we see actors on not just a stage, like a physical stage, we see actors getting parts and doing something in their character development that they present. And then in that work that they present to us is something for us, you see. And that is why it was so important to see the connection of the swans and the Gemini archetype and Nicola Coughlan's chart, especially her 5th house, and Luke Newton's Gemini 11th house of friends, and all of the Aquarius in his 7th house, that I have been connecting with Nicola as a co-lead, and why their combination together, when they're together, and especially in the uniqueness of the promo tour, has been so powerful. And I knew that it had something powerful because of all the symbols that were kind of really being prolific in May and June. And then they continued to create a lot of energy, but during that period of time, it was massive. So that is what I wanted to share with you all, because when you come across something so amazing as a bit of knowledge, now you can have the knowledge, but then there's the wisdom that comes from understanding that. That's when you understand deeply something, that's where you get the wisdom, right? So I hope this is a sharing that you can appreciate. I know it's a little bit of a raw form with me doing it here and just talking with my camera, with my phone, but I wanted to share it with you, and hopefully this is an opener for you, an opener to want to learn more, want to understand how through reading certain materials. I'll share videos because I'm one person and I am astrologer, and that's my passion. I like to bring that to people, but I also can teach some things, but it takes time to produce each thing. I like lives on YouTube because it kind of can bring it quickly without too much editing that needs to take place. But anyway, maybe that will be the case, is because when I'm doing lives, as you can tell from seeing the end product of a live, it's over 2 hours, and sometimes they're 3 hours. So, but I do share a lot within those, and I can always, I guess, splice them up and offer them out in smaller chunks for people to, learn more. Anyway, I thank you so much. It's been a pleasure sharing this with you, because this is a unique time, because this Mercury retrograde is bringing me some amazing insights, and I continue to learn myself and expand my awareness of the symbolism and how it ties together. I love it how things all come together, and I can see it as a whole. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.